be that number one person, so that way everybody comes to you to talk to you about that space. So I think that's probably the best advice I could give somebody that's building a business or that's focused on it. Be that go-to person.
Today, we're speaking with Peter Stefanovich. He is a very strong leader. He has a staff of 20, and he runs a. He's a co-founder, and he's one of the top leaders here at a Toronto-based investment bank specializing in North American transportation supply chain. So we're going to get his background on how he built the company, and then how that actually works as well from a day-to-day on what a top leader looks like at an investment bank like this. So, Peter, welcome to the call.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me on.
Well, I know, like you see yourself, overseeing and running something at that size, and people look at you as like, oh, it must have come easy. But you and I both know that starting anything from scratch and building it up and to that level, there's many struggles, and maybe you could give a little bit about your backstory and the origin story of the company.
Absolutely. No, it's I think any business too, when it's hard building a business and it's great seeing successes, but it's always piss and peaks as you go
Yeah.
through your business. But yeah, starting the business was actually I was working in the U.S. I kind of accidentally fell into logistics. I was in the Chicagoland area and effectively fell into logistics by overpromising something that we didn't have as a construction outfit that I was working for. Ended up basically building an in-house logistics division inside of that construction outfit. That business sold, moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I moved back to Toronto, started working for a company that Wheels Group that was purchased by Radiant Logistics, which is a publicly traded logistics company. And I was setting up the same structure that I did in the US. And there I met my business partner, Mike McCarron. He sold his business to Wheels, then Radiant Logistics. And we started chatting about opportunities from an investment bank. How do we help other potential sellers or buyers either buy businesses or sellers sell their business? When he
Hmm.
sold his business, he needed a good amount of support, and he worked with advisors that didn't really understand or know too much about the industry. So we decided to create Left Lane Associates together, so that way we could help facilitate other clients in this space, help them sell their business, but also speaking to people that understood the transportation, logistics, and supply chain industry. And that was something that was important for us, of having people from the industry working on it from a mergers and acquisition perspective. So we started that in 2016 officially, and then we have built it up to where it is today. We're almost at 10 years, and now we've done 80 transactions as of last week. We should have 81st close this week, potentially actually today. Actually, could close today. So
Hmm.
we're keep on growing, and we keep you know working hard. And despite the economic sort of volatility, we're still
Yeah.
pushing hard and helping our clients either grow through acquisition or help sell through getting them a chance to retire.
Amazing. I love that. You had a vision for it. You had a strong partner, and it's like, okay, let's do this. Take us through, just for the listeners, so they can understand the business a little bit more. Uh, Customer or client comes to you, and tell me the kind of the avatar of that client, and then what the value proposition of where from the time they come to you to the time like the sale, hopefully today for you it closes. But can you maybe explain that process so the listeners have a little better context of the business?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll walk through that. This somebody coming to us looking at selling versus somebody coming looking at helping us buy businesses for them. So when somebody comes to us, they usually have a reason to want to exit their business, whether it's retirement, whether it's wanting to change the atmosphere they're in, wanting to take some chips off the table. There's a variety of reasons. So they usually reach out. We have a conversation on what they're looking to do, why they're looking at wanting to exit, and again, whatever the reason is. From there, it's we really get an understanding of their business, seeing what they want to do with the business, where they foresee the business moving towards, and we talk about what we do and how we do it. And that's really our bread and butter, is like helping businesses get ready to sell, putting them together so that way they're easily marketable when we go out to market to find the correct type of buyer. And because we're very specific, we focus solely on the trucking, logistics, warehousing, the supply chain in North America. So that's US, Canada, Mexico. We we have innate knowledge in the space, and people come to us because of the knowledge and who the right buyers are, what the right values of the businesses are, and how to map that out for them. So we basically walk them through how they sell. We put all the materials together, the marketing materials, all the outreach materials. We walk them through the process. We help negotiate the transactions with our clients and the potential suitors. We help manage the due diligence process and help move things along to get to the share purchase agreement or the asset purchase agreement, and then ultimately to a closing of the transaction. So I'm making it sound a lot easier than what it is. There's a lot of
Oh
ups and
yeah.
downs and nuance in there,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of math, a lot of negotiating, and that's really what we do best.
Yeah, I love how you've niched your market. It's so smart. Like go small to go big, and with your expertise, I can imagine because most businesses would go to a generic business, and they just would not get it. So they're spending half their time trying to explain it, and that salesperson needs to go pitch it. But if they don't understand like the real nuances of the business and where the true value is, I could imagine where you would add massive value. um, are there a lot of competitors in your space, or are you kind of
Uh,
the only one?
so there's a handful of competitors in the U.S. and not many in Canada, but
Yeah,
we're the majority of investment banks or mergers and acquisition firms focus on all different spaces, so they're not niche specific. Some are. In the transportation logistics space, there's about four or five others in the U.S. that we call compete with, but call it friendly competition because sometimes we might have a buyer and they might have a seller, or we might have a
good.
seller and they might have a buyer. So
So
I don't
good.
look at a competition. I look at a ways of working together with people,
Yeah.
right, in the same space.
Yeah, no, I that makes a lot of sense. Kind of like in real estate, you're working with buyers agents and seller agents, and you work together to put a deal together, right? Makes a lot of sense. But I like your niche, like being in Canada. If there's not a lot there, it's like you would be the go-to. Again, I love that niche. What would you say when businesses come to you is the lowest hanging fruit, where you're like most times, and maybe that could be used across all businesses, where it's like if you do A, B, and C, because I would imagine you prep them as well to make them more valuable, to make your job easier. What are kind of the low hanging fruit tasks that you get them to do generally?
I think the biggest thing is to look internally and understand like what's their customer concentration. That's usually one of the biggest things, is to get an understanding of who their customers are and how reliant are they on one or the top one or two clients, right? So one of the biggest thing is looking at diversifying your customer base. And this is a little bit more longer term versus calling us and saying, "Hey, I want to sell in 6 months. How can we do it?" Right? It takes a little bit longer than that. Ultimately, you don't want to diminish your main customer, but you want to find other customers to lower the percentage of your highest customer, right? You don't want one customer making up 80, 90% of your business. You want it to be diversified, and diversification lowers the risk of a buyer. So if a
Mhm.
buyer sees a lower risk, they're going to pay more. And so it's lowering the customer concentration. Also, the secondary piece, so that's a little bit more longer term. Something kind of midterm to short term is reliance on the founder or yourself as a business owner. So you want to lower your involvement in the business. And a lot of times that's tough because it's less about the work is tough. It's more about it's hard for business owners to release those reins, if you will. So it's being less involved, allowing people to make decisions that you don't need to be involved in, and it's empowering people. That's really what it is. So I'd say that's probably the second biggest piece. First is customer concentration. Second is reliance on yourself as a business owner, and probably the third area is focusing on sort of tech space. And in the transportation logistics space, you don't want to be doing things on paper, right?
Yeah.
It's people need instantaneous understanding where you know packages are being shipped or loads are being moved. So you basically want to embrace technology. You don't want to be the last person coming on the technology bandwagon. You don't need to be the number one AI company in logistics, but you also don't want to be the at the very bottom of that, right? So you want to be able to at least have some sort of visibility over where your shipments are going, because a purchaser is going to want to understand what's that low level data. Say how many, call it unit, what's the unit cost of this shipment from, call it, Naples, Florida to New York City.
Yeah.
And if you can't find that out, then somebody's going to ask, well, why can't you? And a lot of the technology products that are out there are definitely able to help find you that information. So having that information is key. So the third piece would be being at least up to date on your technology offerings for your business.
So good. Love that, and I love how succinct you were with your answer there. I think that's very that applies to all businesses across the board. I remember Patrick Bet-David. He was sold this insurance company, and they gave him a certain multiple. He's like, "How do I increase it? Why did they get the more?" It's like, "Well, they're more of a tech company." So he built a tech element into his insurance company, and his multiple went up dramatically. So that makes a lot of sense, and I would imagine that there are probably a lot of companies that are more on paper in the transportation industry. I would imagine, then or not. What would you say?
Yeah, I'd say that there's a lot of room for growth in the technology sector and transportation. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that still use, let's say Excel instead of using a transportation management system or a warehouse management system, right? So you want to be able to have automation built in, and that's where having the latest, transportation management system or warehouse management system is key because it allows you to, again, track things, have full visibility, have your clients have full visibility, and like any acquisition, so forget transportation logistics for a second. Any purchaser is looking at a business, they're looking at it from a lens of risk analysis. You know, if it's a higher risk, somebody's going to put a lower value on it. If it's, lower risk, they're going to put a higher value on it. So you want to de-risk your business, and that's from customer concentration to, key person risk, also to having, technology elements in there. That helps increase the value of your business,
Hmm.
right? So you want to de-risk your position, and the buyer's going to pay more money for you.
Got it. Where would you say would be the goal for concentration when it comes to a customer base to get them down to where it's like, okay, this is good number?
We tell anybody sub 20% is quite good. If you're in single digits, it's excellent. So if you get under 20% or 20% or under, it's definitely very positive. If you're getting to, again, to single digits, it's excellent. So like 9, 8, 9% would be optimal.
Yeah, right on. So Peter, you sold you built your company, and you started this back in 2016, and so why do you keep going? Like, what motivates you?
I think it's like for me, it's a couple things. It's about how building building knowledge with all our clients and people around us, right? So it's staff, clients, and helping teach, right? Really, what we do is we're teachers, right? We walk through and explain how things work. We explain the math, how things work. We walk through, the various multiples things trade at, the various subsets of the industry. So for us, we educate. We're educators, and I think I quite enjoy educating people, helping share knowledge and pass that knowledge on to people. So that's an area that excites me a lot. And I think also, there's always that euphoric high when you help close a transaction, right? So it's always when you close it, great, it's awesome. Just like when you win a football game or you win a baseball game or hockey game, it's you get that intrinsic high after doing that, and that for us is exciting, and it's exciting for our clients too. Obviously, they're getting an exit that's lasting, and for us, it's seeing our clients happy when they can retire and or when they could go and take that money to go pay off their mortgage and then be able to go travel the world, right? Or give money to the kids for university or for their first house. So really for us, it's about seeing the joy that they're able to accomplish things as they're selling their business. And equally when people hire us to buy businesses, it's knowing that our clients, when they're buying businesses, they're finding value out of that, right? And the people that they're buying, now those people are able to be part of a larger organization. So there's more upward trajectory for mobility, their call it jobs, etc. So there's a lot of positive things that happen. A lot of times people tend to look at the negative about like, hey, if somebody buys the business, then do I still have a job? And for almost all the cases, it's you have more opportunities than less,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So you have the growth trajectory that's pretty exponential. So all those things are things that drive me, and making sure that our team is well positioned. And for me, as a business, is to de-risk my business by having less reliance on me and having more reliance on my
Yeah.
staff and team. So equally, the words that I'm saying for
Yeah.
people to do are things that I'm working on to myself, and I think that's that part of that educating and sharing knowledge allows for a business owner to be able to exit from day-to-day operations. I think that's the key piece too.
Yeah, that's so good. You're eating your own cooking, right? You're what you're teaching, it's like you're applying to your own business as well, which is sometimes it's hard to do, right? You do as I
Absolutely.
say, not as I do is with our kids, right? It's like
100%.
so being disciplined with that and making those tough calls sometimes, that's definitely key. And then what's the big vision? Like where are you going with this? Do you see continued growth? Do you see, like, I mean, you're a pretty young guy still. Is there kind of another leg that you're looking to do? Or I mean, what's the vision kind of 5, 10 years out for you?
I think as any business owner, you want to always continue to grow. I mean, effectively, if you're not growing, you're effectively dying, right? Because there's always going to be attrition, right? So if you're not growing, then you're losing parts of the business. So for us, it's continue to grow. Ultimately, add more clients, both on the buy and sell side. Go into new geographies. We do all in North America, but I'd love to cover areas in Central America, South America, maybe Europe or abroad. There's a lot of other geographic locations. Again, still focus on our niche of the supply chain, but look at other geographies and find other areas that, we could find other clients that we don't get into. Again, we get asked about, variety of different locations outside of North America, and we don't cover that. So it'd be great to get into some of those areas. Equally, as part of the growth plan, I'd love to, create a true investment arm where ultimately you have a firewall between the two businesses, but you have one of the businesses being able to invest and grow as a percentage of the business and continue to grow. So a private equity arm, effectively, to be able to use capital to grow other businesses and help out, doing some things that we're already doing with our clients as well. So that's another iteration that would be, I think, quite interesting for us. Ultimately, that's a little bit out there since you want to master exactly what you do first before you really get into something else. So I think it's, for us, making sure that we're laser focusing on helping our clients and doing that first before we get into some of those other areas that I mentioned.
Yeah, so good. So the vision's like, it's really good to get clear with it, right? And that's where, especially with partners, you read a lot of stories, and I've seen this before, where you have one that's thinking like, we're going for it, and then the other's like, well, we're going to keep it very small, right? So kind of having that conversation and getting clarity. And then what's really interesting, what I've learned, is like being able to communicate that down consistently, and doing it enough where people are like, they're making decisions knowing that this is where we're going. I think is, as a business owner, it's very easy to overlook communicating that down and letting the team know on an ongoing basis, because everybody's so busy in the day to day, but nobody is saying, hey, like, we're going over here, guys. Here's where we're going, guys. And then just like the repeating over, and same with the values and the mission, and here's why we're coming in. And is that something that are you more of the chanter of kind of the mission and the vision and the values, or is it more Mike that is kind of that? And what's the dynamic between you two?
Yeah, I think I would say it's probably both. I mean, we like Mike and I are usually on the same page about a lot of stuff, and we go over that. And if we aren't, we discuss and walk through it. Right? That's you're never going to have the same opinions on everything, so it's good to walk through and make sure that you do things correctly. For us, it's been, he's really said, hey, look, like, where do you want to take this? Do you want to grow, or do you want to just be X size? And he would say, "Hey, look, I'm comfortable with both." And I said, "Look, for me, it's about growth. How do we get to where we want to grow?" And that's where we really project that out to our clients, or out to our staff, and we have weekly meetings. We have, you know, we do quarterly meetings about how the business is doing, etc. So we really walk through like what our plan is, what our goals are, what our goals for next year, and that's, really, it's important for us is transparency with our staff, and we're
Yeah.
quite a bit more transparent than most other businesses that I've worked in the past. We're very open about it. We're very open about what we want to do, how we do it, about new hires, what our plans and our vision are. Like, we're not, we like to make sure people are part of the process, and equally, it's a collaborative process. It's not about, us doing things and just telling people we've already done it. It's, let's talk it through. Do people like what we want to do? If they don't, speak about it. If they like it, then how can they be part of our growth story? And that's really what it ends up being.
Yeah, and yeah, people love, they love that. I mean, the purpose, right, and giving them and building them up, and having them part of that. I love that. And I would imagine that your culture, just from what you just said, that would be a very high retention rate for talent. There's like, it's sticky when people are part of something like that versus kind of closed, and you can't talk to anyone. You can't, kind of the silence. I call it like treadmill with companies, corporate, right? You don't talk about that, right? Versus like, we're open and we're talking, and here's where we're going.
Yeah, that's a big selling feature for us. Like, when we compete against hiring, top talent, or when they're competing for getting new clients. Like for us, from a staffing perspective, like we have flexibility, and on top of it, like having the ability for people to be collaborative in the process is a huge win. Most people don't leave, professions or their place of employment because of money itself. It's usually that plus something else. And it's usually because they're not part of something. And if they feel like they're part of it and they know their opinion matters, they know that, their, the owners of the business or their bosses care, then I think that creates that stickiness nature that's hard to find in a lot of other places, right?
Yeah, and that's where with you and your partner Mike, that you guys are aligned on that. That's so important. Our real estate investment firm that we have, John McCarowitz is my business partner there, and it's like we're so aligned. I'm more of a visionary. He's more ops and operations, and we both businesses that we had built before this. It was very strong like culture um, when you get two people, guys, girls, whatever, partners aligned on something of where you're going, man, it's super powerful when it's at the top, right? Because then that bleeds. It's so interesting. I found with companies, when you look at the people and how they act, it's a reflection of who the leaders are in the company. I found. I don't know if has that been your experience?
Absolutely. It's leadership comes from the top down, right? So
Yeah,
understanding the goals and the vision of the business, but also like the corporate etiquette and how to manage clients, how to manage staff,
yeah,
all that, right? So you have to have a level of decorum, professionalism, accountability, and I think that's important, right? And I say accountability, like when just as much as somebody else screws up and you you call them out for that, you have to call it yourself, right? And it's good for other people to call out you for saying, "Oh shoot, I missed this or I was late to this." It's important, right? I think that keeps everybody on the same page, and it doesn't create a vast hierarchical structure. We're very flat from a structural standpoint, that where everybody gets opinion, everyone has everyone's involved in things versus like, well, we got to pass it up here to get this approved to get no, it's very flat, and that makes it way more efficient, and it makes it more collaborative. And I think it's really hard to lose good people when everyone's engaged at that level.
100%. And you get to tap into their genius and creative, which you're maximizing their output that way, versus silencing them. I love it. So you would definitely have a very strong, we'll say, processing mechanism for investing. So when you see investments, you see it, you're doing it for businesses, but like for us, for the real estate investment firm, we have to go through 300 deals, sift and sort to get one. Uh, and then so the question here is for the listeners out there, what advice would you have for them when it comes down to making an investment decision or selection of what to actually invest into? Say their businesses, they're producing, they have some cash there, and there's lots of different options out there now. But I'm curious to get your insights of what's kind of the filtering mechanism when you're out there looking.
I think you have to either invest or purchase businesses that you love. Like you're not buying an ice cream, manufacturer if you're lactose intolerant. You got to really love
Yeah, that's
what
key.
you're investing in,
Yeah.
and you got to make sure that you know that if you're going to be involved in it from a financial standpoint, from an operational standpoint, then you're all in. You got to be 100% in, 110% in, because if you're not, fully engaged in just the love of the type of business, then you're really not going to invest your time or effort in it, right? So I think that's probably the first step to say, like, is this a business that you want to be in? And if it is the type of business you want, so take that first filter out, then does it fit from a geographic stance? Does it fit in the area, physical location you want to be in, right? If you're buying a business, let's say, and investing in a business that's in Seattle, Washington, but you live in, St. Petersburg, Florida, and there's an issue, you have to jump on a plane to go there, right? So there's an importance of being there physically in person if there's an issue. That's going to be a big trek. And what we always like to kind of educate our clients on is when you make your first acquisition or you make your first investment in a business, whether a minority or majority, you want to do it, call it in a local sense and not a big transaction. So you want to start small and start local. And then you start to scale out to further locations, further sizes, larger sizes. And that's when you expand, right? So once you be able to tweak your integration, kind of methodology, etc., then that's when you could start expanding the bubble, expanding the geographic location, the size of businesses that you're investing in. So start local, start small, then from there grow, right? And find out larger and larger because again, your risk appetite grows if things are smooth. Your risk appetite decreases if things go sideways. And you don't want to have things sideways when you're 5 hour flight away, right? You want to be, maybe 5 hour drive at most, but you want to keep it local.
Yeah, there's wisdom in that, 100%. Because there's always things that come up at the beginning, and what your thesis is originally is very unlikely it's going to stay exactly like that as you go. And a lot of times you don't know what you can't really change your thesis until you start moving and get real data. It's otherwise because sometimes you it's a best guess, right? But so like Elon Musk, he just goes and blows up rockets, and he's like, "That's the fastest way to learn." He's like, "Let's move quick."
Yeah,
Obviously, it's calculated. Don't get me wrong, but that it's so accurate. It's if you want to learn fast, you gotta start taking action. That's why I like kind of there's less you mitigate risk by starting smaller, learning. Uh, Kind of like the lean startup methodology, right? You minimal viable product, you get it out there, get feedback, and then move again, right?
exactly.
So good. Okay, so I got three last questions here, and I'm gonna wrap it up. You ready for the rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm a big reader. Love reading books. I'm curious for you. What book has made the biggest impact in your career?
Oh man, I just gotta see what the name of what it is here. It's um man, it's the subtle art of not giving a blank.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like that's why I gotta
And,
be
and the,
local.
the
So
blank is FUCK, just for
yes,
the
there.
yeah. Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what that book I think really shares with you is not so much about what you take from the book, but about how you interact with people and how to better interact, right? To show your passion and be focused on the passion and not be, not get caught up in some of the small things, but kind of get focused on the big picture and not get dragged down by people that want to drag down. So it's kind of inspirational, but also has some methodology behind it from good antidotes, which I think is great.
So good. Yeah, because there's so many decisions you need to make on a day-to-day basis. And if you're kind of caught up with emotions of people versus like we're going after this in the mission, I could see how that would slow down the flywheel, right? Sort of. Okay, very cool. No, you know what, that book I've seen it many times. I haven't actually purchased it, so that's good encouragement for me to pick it up. All right. All right. Second is three words that people that know you best, how they would best describe you as.
Uh, Say hardworking, because that's if you hyphenate that. Um, Adaptable and creative.
Would you classify yourself more of a visionary or like integrator operations, or is it kind of a mix of both?
It's probably a mix of both, right?
Yeah.
So you have a vision, and then I find out like all the nuances and all the details to get there, right? I'm very detail orientated. So I'd say I'm probably more detail oriented than visionary, but having the vision and then having a goal to get there that's kind of you kind of need the metrics and the math and called the landscape to get to that vision, right? So it's not just coming up. I would say don't come up with, if you give a problem, then you also have to have a way to solve it, right? And so you have to have not just point out what the issue is, but also find out like how do you get there, right? And that's the same thing with the vision, and then like what's the methodology to get to that vision.
Yeah, very cool. Well, it's a good mix, and we got 1-2 combo. Um, and final question here is, what final advice would you have for the listeners? There are entrepreneurs out there. What encouragement or advice would you give them to help take their business to the next level?
I think the best advice, and I said a little bit earlier, is do what you love. If you don't do what you love, you're not going to give that 110%. So if you really love like the space I do, transportation, logistics, supply chain, focus on that and find the niche that you love in that space. So if it's freight forwarding or LTL or cold storage, like focus on the space you love and build that out and build that dream out. It's rare somebody's going to say you're too nichey. I mean, it could happen, but you
Yeah.
want to be niche enough that people come to you because your expertise in that space, and you are the expert. You're the number one person. So be that person, whatever space that you're in, be that number one person. So that way everybody comes to you to talk to you about that space. So I think that's probably the best advice I could give somebody that's building a business or that's focused on it. Be that, be that go-to person.
100%. It's easy to, try to go after everything, but that's, I think, the discipline and the genius of doing one thing. There's this guy out in Japan. He's like a master sushi maker, and the guy, like, he's like master. He's been doing sushi for, I don't know, 50 years or something. And people, it's like they spend 400 or 500 bucks to sit down and just experience his mastery of doing sushi, right? um and so I love that. That's very, very wise advice. So there'd be wisdom in following that for sure. So okay, what's the best way, if somebody maybe knows somebody and they're going to reach out to connect with your business, what's the best way they can find out a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. They could go on our website or they could reach out to me directly. Our website is leftlaneassociates.ca. So it's leftlaneassociates.ca. They could also email me direct at peter@leftlaneassociates.ca. They could reach out to us through me directly, and they could go on LinkedIn. They could go on our social media. They could reach out, and we'll answer. We're pretty communicative, and we get back fairly quickly.
Amazing. Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you're a busy guy. You got a potential deal coming up, closing today, potentially as well. So I really appreciate you taking some time out and sharing your story with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you hosting and having me on today.
Right on. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the show. If you liked it, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel where we're building a community of up and coming entrepreneurs. And just remember, guys, that the fastest way to grow your wealth is to build your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.